Hello and welcome to Doing Everything to Avoid the Hereafter. Yes, that is an acronym for death. So let's talk about it so we become a little more comfortable with the inevitable. I'm your host, Jenny Remack. Now let's go make some ripples, you and I.
Grains of sand that scattered across the space of time. Ripples on the water. Ripples on the water.
Hey everyone, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. We have a very special guest today. Rhenae is an artist, storyteller, and author whose work explores authenticity, creativity, and what it means to live with greater presence and intention. Through painting, writing, film, and thoughtful conversation, she creates experiences that invite people to slow down, reconnect with themselves, and see life with fresh eyes. Please help me give a warm welcome to the stage, Rhenae Lauren. Woo! Yay! Thank you so much for being here. Isn't that fun?
Like Bob Fosse dating myself.
Bob Fosse. Oh my gosh, I don't know who that is. Bob Fosse.
Oh no! Okay, well we'll go down that rabbit hole another day.
Okay. Well, Rhenae and I know each other we've been studying alongside the Ruiz family now for several years. We got to meet back in Joshua Tree. Really magical, cool experience. And I'm just so excited that you're here. So thanks for being here today.
Me too.
You ready to get rocking?
I'm ready to get rocking. Let's
All right, let's roll. Let's dive. So what actually got you on the journey with the Ruiz family? What brought you there?
The Ruiz family, I started like most people with the 4 agreements, and it really spoke to me. I first heard about the 4 agreements from a counselor. You know the backstory, but the quick backstory is that I grew up with a lot of trauma. I had depression, anxiety, panic attacks, OCD, PTSD, like all the things. I had agoraphobia. I hardly left the house for like 6 years. I could really only like dope myself up enough with they had me on Klonopin, gabapentin, and Zofran was the last cocktail that I was on, but I had been through like Lexapro, Paxil, all the things.
Okay.
And so I had this counselor who had told me about the 4 agreements because I felt like I just wasn't getting better. There was just some aspect that was missing. In hindsight, I know now it was because that type of psychiatry, psychology, it really just speaks to your mind and that you are your thoughts. And that sort of that aspect, which was helping, but it wasn't really healing me or pulling me out of it. So I felt like something was missing. And this counselor that I saw regularly, Karen, she mentioned the 4 agreements. I think she felt like it was something that would really help me. But at the time, like we say, and kind of on our journeys, like something will come to you when you're ready. And I wasn't ready. So I honestly think I had the book for probably almost 10 years before I actually dove into it because it came back up during the pandemic. So in between the time I had it, I had done ayahuasca and plant medicine. I had done some other modalities of NLP and getting my coaching license and all these, Tony Robbins things and all these things. So I was in a better place, but then the pandemic came and stuff started coming back onto me because, we were locked down. I couldn't go anywhere. It was like I was getting those old kind of feelings of, being trapped, being stuck in kind of hopelessness, all the things that was going on. I personally had lost my business. I had moved to be closer to family and then they moved away. So then I was living somewhere where I had like no family and no friends.
Wow.
Like I had like this full stripping away. So I had all this stuff coming up, like that was just kind of resurging. And I thought I had, fixed. And I think it was just Instagram or something. One day I saw either it was something about the book or maybe it was I had ran across Jose speaking or something and it brought it back into my orb. And I was like, oh, I have that book. I know what that book is. And I dove into it. And I think from speaking to other people, what really spoke to me was the language and how accessible it is and how it's relatable. Like it's not, I think there's 2 type of teachings. there's very conscious teaching, and then there's teachers that do good work, things like psychiatry, but it's still very ego-based. So it's kind of teaching you how to be a better person, but still an ego, where the Ruiz really, it started giving language to being more conscious and being more in your
Mm,
authentic power, and them really
yeah.
bringing up like authenticity and that authentic power and how we're domesticated and how we're put in ego.
Mhm.
Do you know what I mean? So there was that
Yeah.
distinction, and everything they do, because now I'm a Ruiz family groupie. I have like, I think I have every
Yeah.
book, and now I've run like every single book, and when a new one comes out, I can't wait. But they really do that with just such integrity and such beautiful language, and I think for a lot of people, it really speaks to, their spirit, their source, their God consciousness, whatever you believe in that you wanna call it, but that authentic space in you that we just often don't have language for, because we're so
Mm,
used to living in ego, and we're so used to being kinda domesticated in this world that we're not good enough, and all this other language, that's handed to us. And even their discussions on talking about the importance of language
mhm.
was all kind of a new perspective to me. And it just, so many things just started like clicking, and then I
Yeah.
knew why she recommended that book to me way back then. I was like, oh, this makes so much sense now, because it wasn't about you being your thoughts. It was literally saying something very different, like, oh, your mind lies to you, and your mind is an
Uh-huh.
ego. And I was like, oh my God, this makes so much sense. Like,
Yeah.
wait, I get it now. But I think that's what it does for people, is it gives language to stuff we're already feeling, that we kind of already innately, intuitively know, but we just don't have the language for it.
Yes. I love what you said about that authenticity space in you. It gives that opportunity to find that again, right? Like they write in such simple ways, like they don't use the complexities of what our ego does sometimes, with these huge words, and they are able to speak to our hearts, you had said, and then like being able to really help you too. I know you said you read it later after you had, the depression and the heavy medications and the agoraphobia, but it gave you like this, I don't know, kind of like a new lease on life, like understanding about, being able to show
Mhm.
up in the world as you, instead of maybe this egoic character that we've all created within ourselves, kind of thing. So that's awesome.
Yeah, that's why I think I've handed out so many since then, because
Yeah.
it's such a peaceful read, and it gives you language for
Yeah.
things. And it was
Yes.
something that I, on a level, understood, because I had journeyed with ayahuasca about half a dozen times or so. So, which to me, you've heard me refer to it as like kind of like a fast pass of stripping
Hmm.
away ego. So
Yeah.
it does help you understand that there's a difference between ego and then your authentic power or consciousness. But I think, obviously without, being medicated or plant medicine or, any outside sources, that's what their work does, is it really just gives
Mm.
you that language for all that stuff that you're feeling.
Yes. I love that. It does. It gives us a language for all the things that we've been feeling. And so it really puts things into context for me too. Being able to, oh, I'm taking that personal, or oh, I'm making an assumption, or oh, I'm really going against myself by saying yes when I really mean no. So, referring back to those four agreements and kind of how, life goes with those, it flows. I feel like it flows when I'm in the four agreements. Like, I feel like
Mhm.
my life is just, I'm in the river, I'm flowing. It doesn't mean I don't have issues or problems, but I feel like I'm so much more at peace. Like you said, it
Mhm.
gives you this kind of like peace, right?
Right, because because that's the thing. In ego, we're taught that you want comfort and you want happiness,
Hmm.
but those are two things that we may not always be available. You may not always be
Mm.
comfortable. You may not always be happy, but
Yeah.
you can always be in your peace, and you can always be in your
Mm.
authentic power. And
I love that.
that's what having consciousness and awareness is about. It's not about that you're perfect or, you know, as Jose have said a few times, like short of being, you know, in an ashram somewhere, you know, or a temple where you don't have to deal with the outside world at all. Like we're never going to have, you know, totally like things are going to happen essentially, but
Yeah.
it's your authentic power, your consciousness, your awareness that keeps you in that peace and able to handle those things that come. You know, you don't
Yes.
have to deal with all the stuff that all the fears and worries that your mind makes up and all of those things because that's heavily what I was dealing with, and I thought that that was just like this
Mm.
permanent affliction. You know, when I started my journey and was doing like the psychology route, I thought like, oh, this is
Mhm.
just what I'm, you know, I'm just going to always, you know, be this way. I wasn't aware that there was really even, you know, a choice to be any different. And like a lot of us
Wow.
don't know that. We don't know that we have this authentic power that's kind of been, you know, conditioned out of us, stolen away from us.
So this gave you the power of choice back, like the ability to really say, "Oh, I don't have to be addicted to this suffering, or I don't have to continue to suffer the way that I have been. Now I can see things a little differently or choose to have this awareness to have more choice points." Would you
Mhm.
say?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's a huge wake up call. And I think I remember the first day it really came to me how much my life was just a story that I had created.
Mm.
I was kind of messed up for that for a couple of days.
Yeah.
I was a little messed up, honestly. I was journaling for a day or two because I was starting to have to understand that you know, we create our story. And
Yeah.
yet your mind will run amok and other people will influence you and all these things if you let them. And when we don't understand we have a choice, you know,
Mhm.
that is like a runaway train, right? We're trying to people
Yeah.
please. We're listening to other people. We're, you know, trying to measure up. We're trying to do all these things. And we start creating this whole story and identity about ourselves that, you know, when it hits you like a freight train, you're just like, oh crap, like I just made all that stuff up. Like that's just me.
Mhm.
And I can like unwrite that and I can make
Yeah.
up something different. And yeah, for a day or two, I almost felt like I had almost like a hangover. I don't know. I guess I'll call it a consciousness hangover because I was just kind of in this like dazed kind of deer in headlights moment where I was like, oh my God, like that's wild, you
Yeah.
know, because you feel your old stories start to unravel.
Mhm.
But then you begin to realize, oh my God, I have a choice. Oh my God, I really have all this power where I can be narrating this whole damn thing. Like,
Yes.
yeah, like, you know, like parts of you were like, God, what was I doing? And then part of you is
Uh,
like, oh man, this is really great. And yeah, so I mean, you're kind of like, it's a little bit loopy. It was a little bit loopy for me for a couple days because I was like, oh man, this is wild.
Yeah.
But it was that moment that I realized like I had a choice. Like this wasn't, I think one teacher I had said it like you didn't come into this world with like a toe tag or a tattoo on your forehead that said, you know, this is the person you're going to be.
Right.
Like other people started telling you who you were going to be.
Totally. Yeah, right?
You just rolled with it. And then
We all did.
you were like, oh, okay, I guess this is who I am. I guess this is who I'm supposed to be. And
Yeah.
yeah. And then I realized like, oh, I had just rolled with it. Like, crap. Like, that was
I
crazy.
love that you said consciousness hangover. You're like, "Wait a minute. Hold on. Wait a minute. Wait, I can write my story and rewrite my story and do a different narrative. Like I'm the narrator. Okay, well, I don't like what the narrator's saying, so I'm just going to pick a different script and write it and have a different narrative. And there's so much power in that, Renee, because like you were saying, so many of us, we don't come into this world with like a tattoo or a toe tag saying this is who you are. People instill in us who we're going to be, and we agree to it. And so what the agreements do is they give us an opportunity to have new ones or decide that that agreement was never even mine, but I adopted it for whatever reason, and I don't have to do that anymore. And that's, you take your power back so big. So great.
Exactly. Yeah. Most people don't understand. I heard someone say that one. Most people don't understand. They've been living most of their life for someone else, from
Yeah.
someone else's perspective, not even your own perspective. You've been living through someone else's perspective.
Totally.
Someone else said something to you using certain language, and you were like, oh, okay. So like, oh, okay, I'm not good enough. Oh, I'm not
Mm,
pretty enough. Oh, I'm too heavy. Oh, I'm not smart enough. Oh, I'm not talented enough. And then
mhm.
you agreed to it. And then that
Right.
started to become your identity. And yeah, when you
Mm.
start to really unpack that, you're just, yeah, it's so empowering. But at the same time, I think there's a certain level of, oh, wow, okay, now I do need to take responsibility for this.
Yes. Absolutely. There's a huge amount of like, okay, once we get the awareness, we start to wake up. We're like, okay, I'm still responsible for this. So I'm responsible for my own healing. I'm responsible for, how I show up, what I say to people, all the things. And yeah, because a lot of us, we just don't even realize we've taken on all these beliefs. And then, somebody said you're not good enough or not pretty enough. It's all the not enoughs that really root into this fear of us not showing up as our truest selves. And I think that is, that's the saddest part of our society, is that so many of us are not living in our truth, in our authenticity, and showing up as ourselves. Because I hid myself for a very long time too. I wouldn't show emotions. I thought armor was cool, like all the things. And so it's like, no, if I need to cry, I'll cry, and I'll just be like, I'll name it. I'm like, oh, I'm having this emotion, or I'm having this experience. Before I was like, don't even recognize it. It's not even there, you know?
Push it down, push it
So
down.
yeah, push it down.
Keep going,
Get
keep
it.
going.
Yeah.
No, we think there's so much, that there's some sort of honor in just pushing stuff down and then just keep going,
Mhm.
right? Just push it
Yeah.
down and keep going.
Yes.
Keep going. We think there's honor in
Yep.
that, until we have like a full breakdown where we just can't carry that load anymore. And then we're like, oh, okay, maybe this wasn't maybe this
Yeah.
wasn't the best way to go, because then at some point that weight just breaks you.
Right. Exactly. So what do you think has been like the most instrumental lesson you've learned doing all this work? Like it's been the biggest thing for you?
I I really think that it's about I think it's about understanding that you have a choice. I think it's
Mm.
really choice is always a key word for me, as well as questioning.
Mm.
I think once you begin to question things, question the reasons why you do things, the way you identify the way you do, that's when you start to understand that you have a choice.
Yes.
But if you never question, you'll never change.
Right.
It'll just stay the same. So I think the difference that I see with people and when they have real kind of, what we call transformations or turning their life around, it's because they were brave enough to really question things
Mhm.
about themselves and look internally and
Yeah.
understand that they do have choices, that, we don't always make these choices for ourselves. We let it just get piled on. And I think that's the most significant thing, is not being afraid to look inside and question things.
Love that. Yeah, because that curiosity when you question things and you look in, like, take that deep dive inside, then you can get some big answers and understanding of, "Oh, okay, that's why I did that. Well, I don't wanna do that anymore. Now I'm gonna make a choice to do something totally different because that didn't work for me." Or maybe that worked for me for the time, but then it's like, I don't need to carry that anymore. That's not
Mhm.
mine. It never was mine to carry, even though I chose to put it in my backpack. It's too heavy. I don't want it. So we let it go. That's huge. I think, yeah, questioning and, being able to understand you always have choice.
Because I think
Those are
that's
big.
what opens up communications with your authentic self or with your
Mm,
higher self, whatever, language you like to
yeah.
use. Because I think I truly believe we all have the answers. All the answers, everything
Yes.
we need is inside. So the
Yeah.
moment you start questioning it, that's literally like cracking the shell on the egg.
Mm,
That's where
yeah.
things really get cooking. Because if you just sit there and say, "Oh, that's an egg, that's an egg, that's an egg," and you never
Yeah.
question like what's going on inside, then you never get to cooking because
Mhm.
It's just there. But when you start to question and you look inside, that's when your intuition, your higher self, however you look at it, can start to come through and say, yeah, we did that, but you know,
Mhm.
this was kind of why, and we can do, we can do better, and we can make this choice, and we can create this change, and we can,
Yeah.
let that go. But if you're just, running through life saying it's an egg, it's an egg, it's an egg, this is who I am. I giggle when people just say, what are you going to do? This is who I am. And I'm like,
Like,
okay.
well,
I'm like, yeah, but is it though? I don't know.
yeah.
You could
Is
question
it?
it a little bit. Yeah. Is it
Totally. Yeah. I love the metaphor of being like an egg, right? Because if we don't crack inside, we can't get to cooking. We can't get to enjoy that, all the flavors, all the deliciousness that the egg can bring us. We'll just stay an egg and it won't, we won't be able to really yeah, get to cooking, to living, to experiencing. I think experiencing is huge too, right? Like being able to have these different experiences. You were agoraphobic. You were in your house, like you didn't leave it for 6 years, and now you do. Now you go out of your house, you travel, you do different things. And, because you decided to make a different choice and you decided to have a new experience. You cracked your egg. It's awesome. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
it could
beautiful.
have stayed that way. And I think it's too, and I think it also brings in the death conversation because, I believe very much we always say we're afraid of dying, but I think, if we're living in ego, we're afraid of living.
Mm,
We're more afraid of living than dying because we've got so many things we're trying to look up to and so many expectations and so many negative things we're saying about ourselves that keep us from really living.
yeah. Let's talk a little bit about expectations and how it really keeps us kind of afraid to live, because it's like this egoic thing of being afraid to die. But I think, like you're saying, I agree with that. Like we're more afraid to live and be who we truly are, and be like, get up when we're nervous and our voice shakes and just do it. Just get through it, like allow yourself to, oh, that rhymed. Just allow yourself to you know,
Yeah.
get to do different things. And, you don't want to stay an egg. You want to crack open. You want to be able to have these different things. And so talk more about the expectation thing, because when we put expectations on ourselves or others, how does that show up for us with what you're talking about?
Well, so I think so. I'll refer back to one of Don Miguel's teachings where he talks about the lie of imperfection,
Hmm.
and that's kind of what I use as an example and teach and talk about is that's what the ego does, right? There's the ego has this perception of perfection. There's like this illusionary bar that's created. And then
Yeah.
that's where, all our expectations come from, and then that's where all our lies of imperfection come from because we have this bizarre, I don't know who made it, but I just picture this bizarre kind of illusionary bar, that we're all trying to
Mhm.
meet. That if we just do this, I'll be better. If I just do this, life will be more comfortable. If I just do this, I'll be a success. If I just do this, I'll be more important. If I just do this, I'll deserve love. And
Mm,
so I think the expectations really come from that lie of imperfection because are we're sold, that's what the domestication kind of does. We're sold this idea of separateness from the whole, separateness from
mm,
consciousness. We're treated like a branch that's fallen off the tree, that we're
mm,
out there, blowing in the wind alone, floundering alone. And that there's all these things that we have to do to, get back to this place where things will be better. And the lie is we're never really disconnected from that.
mm.
Our
Yes.
authentic self is there. Our conscious power is always there, but we've just been taught through, language and things and expectations of others that we're not that.
Yeah.
But when we kind of, like we talk about, the smoky mirrors, all the smoke that's in the way of the
Hmm.
mirror, not allowing us to see our true selves. So when you start to question, and shoo all that smoke away, and you start to
Yeah.
be like, oh my God, like I don't have to prove myself to other people. Oh my God, I don't have to have more money. I don't have to own more things. I don't have to be skinnier. I don't have to do my nose. I don't need a butt lift. I just, all the
Right.
crazy things our society does right now.
Yeah.
You realize almost how ridiculous it is that you're even talking to yourself that way, because 9 times out of 10, you wouldn't talk to someone else that way.
Right.
You wouldn't talk to your child that way, or you wouldn't talk to your loved one that way. You wouldn't talk to your, dog that way. Like, but we talk to ourselves in just such an ugly way because we have this bizarre, you know, lie of imperfection thrown upon us that, suddenly we're always having to strive and do, to get
Mhm.
back to this place that we never really left.
Yeah.
That's the madness of it. Like
The irony. Yeah.
we're always chasing this carrot, but we
Yeah.
never, it was a place that we never really left.
Right.
It's just all kind of this illusion that's been created, for us until we choose
Yeah.
to see it for what it is.
I love that, because I love that you said too, if I do this, then this will happen, or then this will be this way. Like I will be enough, or I will be whatever my hyperachiever mind would tell me. If I do this, then people will like me more, whatever it is. And so when we do that, then we get caught up in this rabbit hole of thinking, oh, I'm separate from the tree. I'm the branch that fell off, and I'm not, part of the tribe. But the truth is, we're all part of it. We're all oneness. Like, and that makes sense to me. The oneness consciousness, that I am you, you are me. That like we're mirrors for each other. We're beautiful mirrors for each other, and we have opportunities to grow alongside people. Don Miguel always says, "Help me change the world by changing your world." And once we do that, once we plant the seed within ourselves, then we could go be seed planters and help people understand they're not separate from the tree. Like you're part of the branches, like you're part of this thing. And so what do you think then like happens once the body goes? Like once our body's done, and then our higher self, consciousness, spirit, whatever you want to call it, what do you think happens?
It it reminds me of my favorite Rumi quote, right?
Mhm.
You're not a drop in the ocean, you're an ocean in a drop.
Ooh, I
Yeah.
like that.
So I think so I don't think we die. I'll put it to you that
Yeah.
way. I don't think we die
Mhm.
is the best way I can explain it. Our physical body, our garage that our soul's parked in,
I like that.
it will pass away.
Yeah.
Cells of the body deteriorate, bones deteriorate, our bodies deteriorate, our bodies age, here on the earthly plane. But I don't see death as an ending. I see it as a continuation. So
Mm,
from my perspective, you just return back to source.
yeah.
And I don't know that we'll ever have words to explain like what that is, because we don't really know yet what consciousness is. We think it's thoughts, but
Uh-huh.
if a brain surgeon does surgery on someone's brain, you can't go in the brain and find a thought. Do you know what I mean? So we don't
Yeah.
know. We don't know what consciousness is
Mhm.
exactly. So that's really as far as I kind of explore it, because I see it as part of the process. I don't see it as an ending. And I do have a nursing background and stuff. So my aspects are spiritual, scientific, all the things.
Mhm.
But so yeah, the body dies, but I think we just return back to a source, and I think that source energy can still have connections here. It can completely be regenerated. So that's why I think some people still feel people connected to certain people, because there is that energetic connection. And, other people, they just kind of pass, and you don't really, there's no one's really saying like, oh, I think so and so is still around. I think the energy just kind of regenerates back to
Mm,
where it came from. But I do think if you have strong connections with somebody, some of that energy will remain.
Yeah.
I kind of think of it as like paint. Like when I paint art, when I do
Mhm.
my art, like you can have red paint and you have to think in that paint is millions of little pigments, right?
Mm.
And that's how I kind of see energy. There's billions of tiny little fragments in there. So for the most part, I think most energy, most our pigments, our energies, our fragments just regenerate back into source. But I think if you have strong connections with somebody, you know, they still
Yeah.
could be hanging around for a bit and visit you. So I do believe that we do get messages from people and things like that. But I think for the most part, yeah, we regenerate and it's just our body that really dies. I don't think we really die. We just
I
don't
love
under
that.
I think we just don't understand consciousness enough to really have words for it yet.
Yeah. I think there's so much, yeah, that we don't like, we can't in our brains understand. We're just like, "What?" But there's
I think it's
this yeah,
yeah.
this vibration, this connection.
I think it's our egos are that we wanna control things and we wanna understand things, and that's
Mhm.
just something I just don't try to because I'm like, I don't know. Like,
Yeah.
I could rack my brain till my last breath, and I'm still
Yeah.
not gonna know. Like, you're just not gonna
Yeah.
know till you get there. But
Yeah.
I think it's our ego that wants to have control, wants definitions, wants to understand all of the
Yeah.
things. And I'm like, yeah, I don't think we're gonna understand that. Like we still don't even really know where a thought comes from. Like so I just don't know that we're gonna understand what happens when people, pass.
Right.
So, yeah.
I I love that you said our garage that our body, like that our soul is parked in, like it's like a garage that we're parked in for the moment. That's such a cool image for me to be like, oh yeah, yeah, the body is kind of like that, right? And so when we pass that, your belief is similar to mine, I think, with returning to source. And I do believe, I love that you're using the imagery of painting, and you know how like it's got millions of um what is that? The little things that you're painting?
Particles, pigments.
Particles,
Yeah. Yeah,
pigments,
yeah. I
yeah.
mean, because we are energy. So that to me, that's the
Yeah.
best way to explain it because you know, there's colors we can't see. There's so much energy source we
Mhm.
can't even see with our eyes. We think we don't know. We don't see everything. So there's so many
Yeah.
things we can't see. There's colors we can't see. There's energy that we can't see. So that's kind of how I picture it. If you can just imagine, it's just we're just particles. We're just energy. And
Yeah.
so we don't know how or where that energy is going to
Mhm.
be distributed. We know what happens to the body, and I think that's probably about as much as we'll understand until we get to that space.
Yeah. I think that it's fascinating with consciousness, like, what is that exactly? What does that mean? Consciousness.
Yeah.
What is all that?
But
And
I do believe in preparing for death. I have had
mhm,
friends who are like death doulas or death coaches because I do think that it's important that when you pass, it's not so much about the condition of your body, but your
mhm.
energetic state.
Mm.
I do
Yeah.
believe your transition will be better if you're in a good energetic state. Because I have, nursing and family members and things. I have seen people pass, and it's definitely a more peaceful passing when people are at a higher conscious level, when they're understanding who they are, what their life has meant. They're peaceful
Mm.
with their life. You know what I'm saying? They're
Yeah.
not, I think I've heard doctors talk about, no one, I've heard a lot of doctors say that, like, no one on their deathbed is saying, I wish I had more stuff.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Most people on their deathbed are saying, I wish I would have spent more time with family. I wish I would have loved more. I wish I would have laughed more.
Yeah.
What we tend to regret is not having lived more.
Mm.
And that's why I think the death conversation, I call it the angel of death conversation, is so important because I honestly think we should have it every single day.
Yeah.
Because I think thinking about dying is a blessing because it reminds us to live. It
Right.
reminds us we don't have all this time. Like, it's not infinite. And when you think about that, when you think about what a gift your life is, and that you know, out of millions and millions of sperm, you were the one, you were the one that made it, and you were the one that, was given this gift of life, and it's not forever, it's really just a blip in time in the universe, that you begin to start to realize, like, how ridiculous some of the things are that we do worry about, and the pressures that we put on ourselves, and the things that we give our attention to, and the stuff that we get caught up in, and then how much we really just cause our own kind of suffering
Yeah.
through that. But I think you begin to realize the value of life. And I think we were actually talking about that the other day, that, I see that in people that have had, near death experiences, traumatic accidents,
Mm.
things like cancer and stuff like that. I can always tell when I meet one of those people, because their perspective on life and actually living life is so much different than your average person, who I say is at, I refer to it as an average level of consciousness.
Mm.
Most of us are at an average level of consciousness, but I think when you've faced death, or or are facing death, had a near death experience, I think that's kind of like a fast pass to a higher consciousness, where you start to kind of realize it strips away the ego, and you're just like, oh man, like, that's kind of a waste. Like, that, all that ego-based stuff, and the haves, and putting myself down, and what I don't have and what I do have, and blah, 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 is kind of wild, Like, life can be so beautiful. Everything can be really beautiful. I really have everything I need,
Mm-hmm.
but I need to see it, and I need to choose it.
Mm. It's so beautiful to put it that way, because yeah, how many of us are like rushing through life, and then at the end of the life get and say, "Man, I wish I had more stuff." No, it's more of like, I wish I would have loved more, been more present with people. It's a perspective. And so the angel of death visits us every day. It's just it's up to, is it today? Okay, it wasn't today. So I'm going to live. I'm going to keep living, and I'm going to keep showing up in the best way that I can, in the most authentic way, first to me, so then I can be that way to others. And I think that the authenticity is so huge, because then you choose what it is you truly want to do. And that's a beautiful thing you're doing. So how would you want people to remember you once your body's left the garage, or your soul has left the garage?
So, I mean, that's really kind of after the whole pandemic thing, and having my life kind of just, it's like having to start over, for lack of a better term, literally, like, in every aspect, like, everything I ever feared happened. So literally,
Mm,
like, that whole identity got stripped away. So where I was
yeah.
so depressed and so upset at one point, like, I was really, really depressed. And then and my dogs luckily were around and made me feel better. But I was so upset about it, and then I realized what a beautiful gift it was, because at the same time, I really was stepping into my authentic power, and I was like, "Oh
Mm,
my god, that old identity did have to shed away. I did have to let all that
yeah.
stuff go. All that stuff didn't need to really happen. It was all for a reason."
Mm,
So, I think now I'm just in a place where I'm really grateful that I can share that journey through sharing my story, different stories, along the way. Because, after
yeah.
58 years of stuff, I have stories, but through my art, all the things, like,
Yeah.
that's kind of what, as a vintage person, sometimes we call it our contribution error. I
Yeah.
feel like that's really, because I've had stuff, I've had money, I've not had money, I've had stuff. Even, I have a lot of crazy stories. I've hung out with royalty. Like, I've hung out with really wealthy people with a lot of stuff in my
Mhm.
day. I've grew up poor, and I just I've never really understood or grasped, like, titles, or extreme wealth, or designer labels, or, like, it's just never, I've just always been
Yeah.
like, ugh, okay, I do have a thing for cars.
Yeah.
I do like a really nice car. I don't know why I think that was a thing, because my dad used to build cars. So I do like a really nice
Uh-huh.
car. Um, when I see them, I will be ooh and ah over that. But yeah, just material things I've never been that much about. And so I feel like I feel like your life is about the journey. And so
Yeah.
now I feel really privileged to be in a place where I have come out on the other side in a way better place, and I could share that with other people because we have the internet now and a lot more information, and I didn't have that when I was on my journey. But I think the other side to that is now we almost have too much information being
Mhm.
thrown at you.
Yeah.
So I've chosen to really offer it in a more, I feel like I try to be in a more human way where it's through sharing stories and helping people kind of resonate and see themselves in the
Mhm.
things that I'm doing, and especially with like AI and just, buttloads of kind of generic content and everybody just patterning and repeating the same things. I'm kind of
Yeah.
just I'm trying to really break those patterns and
Mhm.
help people see that they're patterns and that it's part of all the conditioning and step out of that because I think that everything that's going on now, I know feels chaotic, and I think it can go one of two ways. We can keep making poor choices, and then it's obviously not going to fare very well for us. Or I think it's our invite to be more conscious and live at a higher conscious level and understand
Mm.
our authentic power versus being disempowered. Because that's either what you're going to do, right? You're going to make an empowered choice or a disempowered choice.
Yeah.
So I am really hoping that, my legacy will be that I've been able to speak to some people's, authentic
Mhm.
power and help them find that and help them realize that
Mhm.
they are not broken. They are
Yeah.
100% enough you
Mm.
know, to have a beautiful life. You were not put here to deal with suffering or be subjugated or have to be on survival mode or constantly triggered because I know what that feels like and it's agony when your nervous system is constantly triggered, when you're constantly negative, when you feel like you're not good enough. And that's no way to
Yeah.
spend, your time on your earth clock. It's just not it's
Okay.
not
On your earth clock.
on your earth clock. It's too short.
Yeah.
You don't wanna be on your deathbed saying, "Oh, I wish I would have done this."
Yeah. What a beautiful legacy to be able to help people remember their authentic truth and empower them, to return to their authenticity. So if somebody was like, "Oh my God, Rhenae, she's my gal. I want her as a coach. I want to reach out to her." What would be the best way for people to get a hold of you?
I'm trying to do everything the most personal way possible. So I have my YouTube where there's
Okay.
YouTube videos where I talk about my podcast Authentically Clear where I talk about living authentically and in your
Yeah.
authentic power. And I'm growing my Substack community, which is also at Rhenae Lauren Authentically Clear. There will be a subscription, like, membership version where we'll have a community where we'll meet every week, and
Awesome.
that's what I'm growing now and where I'll share kind of my journey and thoughts and ideas on all of this and invite other people to share, and then we'll be able to meet up and talk about it, like, in person, so
Yeah.
old school, like getting around the campfire, old school. So yeah, so
Love it.
Substack and YouTube, and then I have my art and all the things are of course on RhenaeLauren.com where everything is. You
Perfect.
can kind of my little central hub where I try to share as
Awesome.
well. So yeah.
Beautiful, buddy. Thank you so much. I will post all of that below the video so that you guys can go to the website. And if you want to get a hold of Rhenae, please do. It'll be worth it. I mean, you're an amazing coach, incredible storyteller, and you have made such a profound difference in my life just
Mm,
listening to you speak. So thank you.
we gotta
Yeah,
we take the lessons from the journey. That's the key thing
that's right.
too, right? It's not failure; it's a lesson. So
Right.
yeah, I feel very grateful that I learned that perspective from the Louise, especially that, we think they're failures, but it's actually the universe pointing you towards something.
Yes, I love that. That is a great perspective twist, right? Like it's a learning, it's not a failure. Stephen Colbert says that too, is there's no mistakes, only discoveries, like an improv. Like we get to discover and learn and unlearn what doesn't work and relearn what is, what we want to do. So I
Right.
love that you're doing this work with people. I think it's a beautiful opportunity to help people really get into their authenticity and their power. So thank you for doing that. Thank you
Yeah,
for doing what you do.
we all deserve that. We all get to deserve. We all have our birthright is peace and being on our
Yes,
authentic power.
that's right. Beautiful. Well, buddy, thank you so
Thank
much for
thank you.
coming on the show. I love you
Love
and
you too.
sending you lots of love and hugs, as Adrian
Talk
would do,
soon.
sending you
Yes, ma'am.
hugs.
Yes, ma'am. We'll talk soon, but thank you
All
so
right.
much.
Thank
Have
you
a
so
beautiful
much.
rest of your day.